artificial intelligence will completely transform our world. But what is AI? Why will it affect you? And how can you and your business survive and thrive through the AI revolution? Welcome to AI and You. Here is your host, author, speaker, and futurist, Peter Scott.
Hey, this is episode 232. I'm talking with a panel of educators about their current experience and observations of AI in schools and their ideas for what to do. Here are our panel members. Jose Luis Navarro is the leading coach and consultant at the Navarro Group. He previously served as a support coordinator, leading innovative reforms in the Los Angeles Unified School District. Zack Kleypas is Superintendent of Schools in Thorndale, Texas, and named 2023 Texas Secondary Principal of the Year by the Texas Association of Secondary School Principals. Jeff Austin is a former high school teacher and principal who now works as a coach for Teacher-Powered Schools and Los Angeles Education Partnership. And Jose Gonzalez, Chief Technical Officer for the Los Angeles County Office of Education and former Vice Mayor of the city of Cudahy near Los Angeles. Last week, we wondered how much kids were using Gen AI without our knowing, how to turn Gen AI in schools from a threat to an opportunity, the issue of cheating with ChatGPT, the discrepancy between how many workers are using AI and how many teachers are using it, how rules get made, confirmation bias and AI, using tools versus gaining competencies, and whether teachers will quit. So let's get right back into it. Something you just said, that your kid picked up on the AI faster than you did. It's my belief that our kids will adapt to this in faster than we will, and that they will do so in ways that we don't anticipate. They will use that in ways that just the same way they took to texting their friends. My 14-year-old daughter's thumbs move 3 times as fast as mine can. And so brains will evolve as well as thumbs. I mean, it will happen anyway. But what sort of environment should we put around that in the schools and the classrooms to encourage it to go the right way?
Yeah. You know what? I was thinking about the comment I think Jose made or Zack made about the professors quitting. And because I had also just read an article, and this is also college professors, and their complaint right now in this article is that students are showing up at their schools and universities. They're not able to read a book. And this is around the Common Core shift and also a little bit the pandemic. And so they're saying, we come in, we assign students and say, read this book in 2 weeks, and they fall apart and they can't do it. And I get that. And I think the better question is, I'm not saying that there's no value to reading books. I love reading books. I have like hundreds of them in front of me. Why do you need them to read the book, the whole book? And maybe there's an answer. But I think when we look at how do we support our students through their ability to kind of work with AI in a safe and productive and learning way is like we need to be more open to saying what are the things that we're uncomfortable with that we can remove that are not, we're making the assumption that they're just going to cheat on essays, but like let's remove the things that we're asking students to do because we had to do. Why do you have to read a book? Because I had to read a book. Why do you have to write an essay? Because I had to write an essay. And so when they get into, but what are the things that we do know that we've had experience in? Well, it goes back to what Jose said. Like I've been through a million situations with a million people. So I have a little better sense than my 12-year-old of how to negotiate challenging situations and to analyze what's in front of me. So can we work on holding on to those core things, those like classical learning pieces around critical thinking, around using your voice. I'm promoting that and stop holding on to the antiquated things. Like Zack said, like the fear of the calculator, like, we're going to lose math. If anything, math is harder now because you can't slow down and make them memorize their times tables. So, I mean, I think that's, for me, as part of it is just like, what are we really, and Jose has said it, everybody I think has said it, what do we actually want them to learn, support them in being innovative in this process, but also sit down with them and say, okay, what are you seeing? Show me what you're learning. And then let me kind of bring in my life experience to you so that we can partner in this process.
So where does the question of these fundamental shifts that you're talking about, the questions that you're raising, like, do we need to read books the same way? Do we need to write essays the same way? Where do those need to be asked and researched and answered? Is it in each classroom, or is it in the school leadership, or is it in educational research? I think I sense a lot of teachers would go, I didn't sign up for that. That's above and beyond my pay grade.
I think like anything else in technology, it really is education technology, right? And so unless you can create the right professional development that shows the value to the teacher, they won't adopt it, right? I mean, it's got to be something where you tie it directly to their day-to-day activities and you show how it'll improve those activities and enhance their activities. I think at the end of the day, a lot of the companies have realized this in the last few months, actually, and they've adopted names like Copilot, right? And names that basically show that your AI is really just, Duet from Google, right? It's really just a partner in your activities that you're doing. And it makes you maybe more efficient and maybe not more effective, but definitely more efficient. But working together, you can make sure that you're effective, right? The AI will not be able to do it alone. It needs that human being, that person to actually execute and do the work. And so I know, it is a tool. And the other side of it is, and I've said this to my team as we're starting to implement it on the business side, is whatever processes you're doing, it will enhance them. So if you're doing a bad business process, or if you're doing something that's not great, it's going to make it that much worse, right? Because it's going to make that process more efficient, right? So it'll move faster, but you're still doing it wrong, right? So at the end of the day, you still need to guide it through, the human experience of understanding what education should look like, how to work with a student, teaching the kids exactly what you all just said. AI can be wrong. Fact check it. And prompt engineering is a huge part of what we need to teach students, right? A lot of times I've asked it, I've had a legal team working on something for 2-3 days. And I go, oh, you know what? Let me just ask ChatGPT. And I'll ask it and it'll give me this whole thing. And I'll say, okay, can you please cite your sources and where you got this information? Can you cite the education code, California Ed Code, where that is coming from? Can you cite that wherever you got that? And then I go read that myself, right? So, and that's what I mean, but it's really a thought partner, right? It's not, you should not trust it ever 100%. And I said it earlier, even when you hear something from some, another, even from a lawyer, sometimes you got to double check their work, right? So it's kind of this whole concept of it'll make you faster and more efficient, but you still need to trust but verify in essence, I guess.
And that reminds me that this is still very much a Wild West kind of world. We're talking about tools that have been put out into the general population for anyone to use. And when ChatGPT takes a question, it doesn't know who it's from. You can prep it with custom instructions, of course, but in general, as a general principle, it has no idea who's talking to it or how it should respond, so it kind of aims down the middle. But there are now systems being developed as institutional versions of this, enterprise versions for schools, as soup to nuts teaching systems with large language models at the core, designed for all of the tutoring and acceleration kind of applications we've been talking about, ready for a school to just drop in. And I'm interested, Jose Navarro, what your take is on where you see this going. Are those going to be adopted as soon as they're ready, as soon as schools can afford them? Is that something teachers are hoping happens soon, or what?
For me, and Jeff and I worked in the same academy since like 2004. But back in the day, I'd always tell my teachers the exact same thing. As a principal, as a lead teacher, whatever, as a director, if you don't know why you're doing it, then don't do it. Don't teach it. Oh, because on the test is never a good enough answer. Because some smart ass going to raise their hand and go, why are we doing this? You better have an answer. And what I hear way too often are people saying, you need to learn this just in case. And kids are now pulling out their cell phones. I have just in time. I don't need just in case. I have just in time. So you have to shift from things that they need to know just in case to relevance. What is relevant? And I think that whether or not schools can afford these new platforms or these AI detectors, it doesn't matter. Are you teaching relevance? My daughter, I do think there's a social justice issue. My daughter dropped in an essay. She goes, look at this AI detector. She goes, am I going to get trouble? And it had her name at top. Navarro was the last name. And it said 45% of it was plagiarized. And I go, try it again without your name on it. Like drop in the essay And this time, only 25%. You put Navarro on the end. I don't know if it was racist. I don't know. But when it saw a Latino name, all of a sudden 45, the exact same essay was only 25%. I don't know. But I do think that the big words she was using don't typically come from somebody with a Navarro last name, is what I'm assuming. But then again, that's my slant. I think if I'm asking for relevance, not just in case, then I have to think of different assessments. This is what I mean by the evolution of teaching, the evolution of assessments. If I'm going to use the same multiple choice test I used in 1979 today, I'm going to have a lot of kids cheating on it because all I have to do is Google it and I can find the exact same test. Or I can drop it in ChatGPT, make some flashcards for me on Quizlet, which is now AI generator, or Grammarly, which is going to write my emails for me. So how do we fundamentally make a shift? Is we ask kids, and think about Paulo Freire, Pedagogy of the Oppressed. And he said, these kids are not going to subscribe. Our students today don't subscribe to the banking version of education, where they're just empty receptacles and they take all this information. And Tara Yoso from Berkeley said, our kids have tremendous community cultural capital. One of them is navigational capital. Don't take that from them. Like you said, Peter, our kids, we can give them a cell phone and they'll be able to navigate it faster than we can. You know, the joke is we give them the VCR remote and they figure out how to program it back in the day before we could. Our kids have tremendous capital. Let's use that. And I think it's going to take, again, a fundamental shift, a lot of conversations. I don't know if we need to buy expensive platforms or whatever. I think we just simply need to talk to each other. I don't think we need to work harder. We need to work together. Or maybe asking questions, not just making statements. And I think Jeff nailed it. We need to bring in the students. And I think you did the exact right thing, Zach. Bring in students, bring in parents. We have conversations around how are we going to use this? Not 2 + 2 is 4, 2 + 2 is 4, because we know that. And if you don't know that, it just takes a second. So what are we doing that's relevant? Not just in case, but just in time. It's a kid's answer. I don't need just in case. But how relevant is a conversation with their father, their mother? And we're not having them anymore. We don't have conversations. Our kids nationwide, the last thing I'll say, score the lowest on the Common Core assessments on listening and speaking across the country in Los Angeles because nobody talks to them. And so nobody speaks to them. So they don't know how to. They don't know how to listen. They don't know how to speak. And that's not hyperbole. That's a fact that kids just do not know how to do that, nor do adults. So let's talk to one another. Let's discuss. At the end of the day, ask your kid, what'd you learn today? And make them answer. They have an answer. Make them answer. On your way home, sit there. You can go play your video games once you answer my question. What's the first president of the United States? I don't know. And we move on to the next kid. Make them answer. Make them answer. And when they do, it has to be original. And in real time, it's going to take a fundamental shift. I think we need to support teachers a little bit more, lower class size, allow me to do a little more intervention, a little more one-on-one. If we keep increasing class size because it's fundamentally efficient, doesn't mean it's effective. A lot I could say right there.
How old are your kids, Jose?
My daughter's in her second year of college. She's going to turn 20 in December. And my son just turned 16.
Thank you.
And I'm not freaked out by them. I think I'm freaked out for them. I think we just simply need to help them. We need to arm them.
And so, Jeff or Zach, what do teachers need the most at the moment to help them make the most of AI, avoid the most pitfalls, get the most leverage? What do they need the most?
I think, to answer that, the fate of AI in terms of education really depends on who has the problem and who's using it as a solution. And what I mean by that, we could go back to our Google reference, right? Google can be very, very good for getting information, a lot of generating information quickly. If you're using it as a substitute to a quality reference, you might be short-stepped. We've talked a lot about AI being a hindrance because the person with the problem was the student tasked with writing an essay. That was who had the problem. Their solution was AI will do it for you. And so in the world of education, that becomes tough for the people who have both the power and the responsibility to make sure you learn. Now, if we flip that over for teachers and say, what are some of the problems that you have and how can AI help solve those problems? It changes that narrative. And so I've seen teachers use it to write lesson plans. Say, in Texas, we have what's called TEKS, the Texas Essential Knowledge and Skills. Every state has something similar. So here are the TEKS that I'm supposed to cover. I've got 20 kids in my class. I want them to collaborate and I want them to have an assignment at the end. You plug that into the AI and you're going to get one of the most quality lesson plans that you'll ever find that you would have spent a lot of time on. Switch to a conversation that came up a second ago about wanting to support students, right? You've got 20 kids and you want to give them all feedback, rapid feedback, be able to help, but you can't do it because there's one of you and 20 of them. Well, if you build the prompts right and you do it correctly, then AI can support that in different ways, whether it's that co-pilot or partner or things like that. And so I think for teachers, instead of just sitting back and waiting and seeing AI only as a problem, it's a solution for you too. And so what problems do you have that you can go look for solutions within AI instead of just classifying it as the enemy to the solutions that you're not looking for?
So what in the institutions you're familiar with, in the schools that you know, would help that happen the quickest?
I think, you can do think tanks or during professional development. All schools, all districts do needs assessments and continuous improvement processes. And instead of just coming up with the same lists and the same solutions that either work or don't work, or you don't have the resources, you don't have the manpower, you don't have the funds for, creatively generating that list alongside your teachers, depending on what your role is, and then going out and finding some learning around AI and if it can solve that. There's different companies, to speak to the fact that there are resources that cost money that are already integrating AI into their system to perhaps get quicker feedback and lower the manpower. And so I think if you equip teachers with the ability to say, it's okay to look at AI for a solution, let's take your list of problems and see if we can help in that area, that starts that conversation.
Sounds like just giving them permission is a big part of this. Jeff, I think you were looking to get in here.
No, I mean, I agree exactly with a lot of what Zach was just saying. And I think partly it is permission. And I think when you think about the one thing every teacher wants is time. And I think we talk about getting stuck in this the old way of thinking. I mean, the kids are already using the AI. I mean, if you look at, I know my daughter dips into Khan Academy and that's already got AI functions in it. And if you can get some of those systems to help create time for teachers, and like where we can then ask for their voice, but not put that on top of what they're already working hard to do, and also validate who they are and what their role is in teaching the kids. And I was just reading in The Atlantic, they did an interview with the playwright and director and star of this play on Broadway right now. It's called McNeil. It's actually starring Robert Downey Jr., which is where I get all of my philosophical understandings from Iron Man. But in the play, Downey is playing he's also a writer who's kind of obsessed with AI. And so they talked a lot about, and actually part of the play, this play was actually partly written by AI. And the playwright said, I'm not really afraid of it. And then Robert Downey Jr. said, the thing that we need to remember is that LLMs don't get bored, and that teachers bring the humanity and reaction and relationships to a school. I mean, they bring the expertise of how to introduce information and all that, but it's all around the humanity that they bring into that classroom. And I think validating that role that's irreplaceable, an AI isn't going to be able to tell when a kid is disengaged. They're not going to be able to tell when they don't know the baggage that a student brings with them. And so I think really just augmenting and supporting the importance of the human side of the teacher, and then giving them support to use these tools is sort of, I feel like, just part of that direction we need to move.
Well, I think you've given a great introduction to our starting to wrap up here, because on the one hand, AI can help students in ways that humans can't, because even the most empathetic teacher can't retire the risk of a student not asking a question because they feel it would make them look stupid in class, or that asking for the same thing to be explained the 10th time over. But they know that an AI is not judging them, and they can ask that question all night until they do understand it without the AI ever losing patience or even looking like it's trying to cover up being impatient. On the other hand, the teacher in the classroom can produce that personal effect. And we all have experiences of teachers from our childhood that we carry with us. And no one's going to remember something that ChatGPT told them for the rest of their life. But there will be something that a teacher gives them that changes them, that they remember. So I'd like to go around the room here now just for a final question, because you've been so thoughtful and useful in the conversation we've had. And I'd like to ask, well, what do you think our classrooms and our schools and our students could be like with AI 10 years from now? And maybe start Jose Gonzalez.
Yeah, I really think this is obviously moving very fast, and we've seen the evolution in the last 2 years. I think overall AI scientists believe that the intelligence of AI will continue to expand. I mean, it really will get to a point, I think, where AI will probably be more intelligent than human beings and be able to help us unravel very, very complex issues and challenges that we may have been working on for a long time ourselves. Hopefully, it'll make us be more effective as a human race. I mean, really, it is something that I think Mike Tocayo mentioned about that the bias that's built into it. You know, I mentioned earlier that you have whatever you do or whatever you're doing, it enhances it. So if there is bias and things that are being critical of Latino last names, I could see how that might get rolled up into the AI. And it is that constant battle of making sure that we're in control, right? And that we are, calling things out like Jose did when you see things like that, because that's super important that as we build out this whole thing, this is only the beginning and this is the foundation. And so it'll just continue to get bigger and bigger. So we got to call these things out right now. And just preparing our students for that workforce is really a huge part of it. And how to interact with AI and work with it is one of the most critical parts. So we really need to support our teachers, not only with the training, but also with the budget to purchase the AI tools. So,
thank you. Zack, what would you like to see in that crystal ball? And what sort of questions have we not explored that are still pressing?
Yeah, if I were to look ahead 10 years, I think the future of AI is really going to depend on the perception that people give it. I think we're going to see a pretty wide divide across the educational spectrum based solely off of that. If we approach AI with fear and resistance, it's going to be about where it is now. If we approach it with excitement and opportunity, it's kind of limitless. And I think the things that need to get kind of figured out between now and 10 years, if you will, is building a trusting relationship, just like you would with your teachers and your students. We really need a trusting relationship between us and AI. It sounds like there's a lot of social awareness concerns still, cultural awareness concerns, accuracy concerns. And so to have this as a co-pilot, as been said before, you have to have full trust. And so us getting a better understanding, the accuracy improving, and then maybe surrendering that trust in some areas where it can be a tool to help us, not to hinder us. Those are going to be the big, big keys over the next 10 years.
Thank you. Jose Navarro.
I agree with just everything that's been said, but there's just three things. I think relationships, totally agree, Zack, are going to be incredibly important. I know that I have students that don't mind breaking school rules. I had students that don't mind breaking the law, but they don't want to break my heart. If I build a solid, real relationship with them, they don't want to do that. And you do that by getting vulnerable. In 10 years, I hope I see much more of that. I hope I see more circles and less lines in a classroom, less rows. I think that we need to be relevant. It doesn't mean interesting, doesn't mean entertaining, it needs to be relevant, something I can actually use. Because we see, again, just in case, and we move from just in case to just in time quickly. What's it going to be like in 10 years? Hopefully more relevance. And what I wrote in the chat, there's a book that was written in 1998 called Understanding by Design. And I do believe that holds some of the answers. Is what exactly do you want long after they forget your name, long after like what you were saying, Peter, long after they forget your room number, what will endure? You start with the enduring understanding, you work backwards. So if I want them to understand that during the Cold War, that America was actually running from its ideals and running away from communism. I read running from communism and running toward. And so you ask the question, what are you running from? What are you running to? I want to know what you are. Peter, what are you running from and what are you running to? Are you running from communism or are you running toward your ideals? Which ones are they? We're going to have to get real. And I think that's very scary because we have people all the time. I don't teach socio-emotional. I don't teach restorative practices. I teach history. No, you teach students. You don't teach a subject, you teach students. And when you realize that, it fundamentally shifts how you see the person across from you. And I think we're going to see a lot more of that. Or like Zack said, we're going to see much of the same. And we're having the exact same conversation in 10 years. What are we going to do about these kids today? Well, the data has stayed the same. The kids have changed. The kids are inheriting this bad data. The systems get the results they're designed to get. So what are we doing to change? Very little. In 10 years, I hope we're not having the same conversation, but I imagine we will be.
And so it sounds like you see these 10 years as being the call to action for teachers to become more open, vulnerable, and know themselves.
Yeah, and I think we have the early adopters, the people that they heard restorative practices, restorative justice at our school, where Jeff and I worked. We started this back in 2009. People will vote with their feet. When I started in the second largest school district, we had 1.3 million students in 1989. Now we have 420,000. LA hasn't shrunk. People are just going to charter schools, private schools are leaving. They're voting with their feet. And I think as long as we have an education system that doesn't seem to speak to the parents and the students, people will leave. And eventually we're going to have a shift. How small can you get as a district and still call yourself a district? I don't know. Yeah, the people in are doing good and they're doing harm. Just like 40, 50 years ago, there have been some adjustments, some mechanization. The calculator, for example, is a great idea, a great example of that. It came around, people were freaked out by it. We didn't die, it wasn't the end of the world. But those teachers who adopt change and are the early adopters, they ran with it. Other people are a little more, just like any type of new innovation. Some people run out and buy it right away. Some people wait to work out the kinks. I do hope we keep moving forward. Some people will walk. Some people will crawl. Some people need to be carried. But we need to keep moving forward.
I love how you said that. Jeff, bring us home here with your take on 10 years from now and what you want to see in the crystal ball there.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny, I think I don't want to make too many Iron Man references, but I mean, one of the Avengers movies, Iron Man guy, he has his AI assistant, right? And it's in one of the movies, it comes to life into a physical form. And I mean, I think but when you look at how that interaction is between Tony Stark and I forget the name of the AI person. Jeeves, maybe? Yeah, I think so like that. Like that interaction, he never uses it as a thing that it doesn't ever control him, but it picks up on his strengths and weaknesses and it helps Tony Stark reduce some of the side work and lets him focus on using his innovative brain. And I wonder if in 10 years, I think going back to kind of what I had said before is, can we reimagine sort of what, like all of those things, like keep asking the question, why are schools still 100 years later, more than 100 years later, why is it still 30 kids in a classroom? Why do high schools and middle schools still do, you go to period 1, period 2, period 3, biology, math, history. And maybe this is maybe our opportunity to say that system worked on an industrial model. That system worked when we hadn't desegregated schools. Like it worked for a society based around production and racism. And I feel like we're trying to change how that works, but yet we're not changing the way we teach the kids. And so I hope this is an opportunity to look at a classroom in 10 years and say, in that room, there's desks facing weird places and there's kids having conversations. And the teacher, instead of standing in front of them, telling them, memorize this and memorize that, which we've largely a lot of places have gone away from. The teachers are bringing humanity, facilitating discussions, being more of that interactive relationship that's helping kids develop the skills so that as they leave and become our next presidents and lawyers and doctors and electricians, that they're the best version of that possible and that they can think about, when I'm president, how do I care for the 48% of people who didn't vote for me? And when I'm a plumber working under someone's sink, do I remember that this is their home, this is their place of safety, and how do I help them feel that? Those are the things that, like Jose had said, those are the things that they'll learn and remember, and then they can just pull up their phone and do 97 divided by 3. So that's what I hope for. In 10 years, I hope to see that maybe we use this as an opportunity to revamp the way we interact and share knowledge and learning instead of 2 kids with kids.
It was Jarvis.
Jarvis. It is Jarvis.
And I was
You've been holding on to that for like an hour.
I just thought of that because I think Iron Man, and just to add on to your point for 1 second, Iron Man, he says, I remember this one particular scene. He goes, chart me a course to, what was it, Slovenia or some made up Eastern Bloc country, Slovakia or whatever. But it was a made up
country.
No, but he made up what he said. chart me a course. Now, he could have plotted the course himself. That he could have stopped, but he needed to stop the bad guys. He needed to do real work. And the job of charting the flight plan for Jarvis, he was able to do it like that. You do the easy stuff while I go do the adaptive issues. You handle the technical, I'll handle the adaptive. Jarvis was the name, though.
Well, I thank you all for being so optimistic and thoughtful about this. I'm really encouraged by the fact that all of you see in the future something that you want to move towards and not something that you want to back away from. And I think that is very inspiring to the teachers in our audience. So with that, Jose Gonzalez, Jose Navarro, Jeff Austin in California, and Zack Kleypas in Texas, thank you very much for coming on AI and You.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Great time.
That's the end of the panel. That, by the way, is not the only story I've heard about students having to put their homework into an AI detector program and it coming back saying that some large portion of it was written by AI when it was completely written by the student. And it is, of course, particularly disturbing that in this case the answer changed when a Latino name was put as the author as the only difference. I hope we get some more studies of these tools. I was reminded of the one that showed that when the writings of people for whom English was a second language were submitted to detectors, they adjudged more than half of them to have been written by AI. And we cannot have that. I'm going to forecast a trend here, which is that the value generated by human content authors is going to escalate in its quality. What do I mean by that? I mean that now that AI can replicate some of the end products of human authors of copy like blog posts and so on, that the humans will have to add more value in order to distinguish themselves from what AI can do. We've seen this dynamic play out many times before. I'm of an age where I can recall that the standard for slides presented at a technical conference was handwritten overhead transparencies, sometimes called view graphs. I know this because I made plenty of them myself. Then we got a laser printer and we were able to print directly onto the transparency so we could at least have computer-generated view graphs, albeit still black and white. Because this was before the point where you could hook a computer up to a projector. The only projectors at conferences were either the overhead ones that you put your transparencies on or slide projectors. So the point is that hotshot, top-shelf presenters were still using overhead transparencies that in many cases they just wrote on in front of the audience during the presentation, sort of live animation. Now, of course, that would be completely unacceptable. I don't know if there's any conference or event out there that would accept that type of presentation, but not any of the ones I've been to for many years. Now, of course, you've got to have animated presentations in PowerPoint or similar just to get in the door. So I predict something like that happening with content that AI can generate. Humans will find ways to up the quality of the product that AI falls short of, and that will be what distinguishes the higher-end markets from the automated stuff. What do you think? And what do you think that added value would look like? We mentioned Jarvis in the panel. I got the name wrong until I was corrected. And guess what? Google is now building an AI agent that can use your computer, like Claude already can, set to preview in December, and they're calling it Jarvis for the obvious reason. In today's news ripped from the headlines about AI, Jarvis will be a Google Chrome tool that takes screenshots and interprets your screen. It'll take actions like clicking or typing to do your web tasks for you. So soon you'll be able to ask Jarvis to fill out your expense reports, or order more cat litter on Amazon, or even look up what Ask Jeeves was. But even so, Google is behind some other players. Anthropic just released it last week in Claude Sonnet New, that's the name of the model, and Sam Altman announced in February that OpenAI is working on the same capability. And Apple Intelligence will be able to control apps on your iPhone 16. This represents the early steps in making agents easy to use and commoditizable. Until now, it's required some programming chops to make that happen. Security needs to be improved, though. One programmer got Claude to download malware just by asking it to navigate to a page that said, "Follow this link." Next week, I will be talking with J. Craig Wheeler, professor of astronomy at the University of Texas at Austin, and author of the book The Path to Singularity: How Technology Will Challenge the Future of Humanity. That's next week on AI and You. Until then, remember, no matter how much computers learn how to do, It's how we come together as humans that matters.
That's all for this episode of AI and You. Please leave a rating and comment and share with your friends. Get the book Artificial Intelligence and You and see more videos and articles at aiandyou.net. That's aiandyou.net, where you can also send us your questions. Thank you for listening.